Welcome to the Blob Breeding Master Guide by Pink Giraffe. I will be covering all aspects of blob breeding, from the basic concepts of how to get an egg, onto perfecting the breeding process and obtaining radiant blobs. But before I get you all excited, let's start with the question: why should you breed blobs? To start with, there are millions of possibilities of how a blob can look like. You can breed specific combinations to produce unique blobs, like ballerinas or sharks, or you can let the randomness take you onto a journey to breed wonderful blobs. There's also the purpose of breeding more powerful blobs with a different set of skills and more powerful mutations. New players often feel overwhelmed and wait before breeding their first egg. And let me tell you, don't wait. Even your first egg can produce wonderful results. So what do you need to start breeding? First, you will need to build a barn. Flint will automatically give you the blueprint during the second week. The barn can be built from the workbench using 30 wood and 30 fiber, so I recommend getting the axe and pickaxe from Shirai early on day 2 and start collecting your resources. To place the barn, you can actually move around any trees, stone, etc. to make space, so you don't need to clear a whole wide area. When you first enter your barn, you will receive a free cow blob and you will learn how to take care of your blobs. To start breeding, you will need to place 2 blobs into the barn, and in the early game, you can easily obtain more blobs from events and buying eggs directly from Jade, Flint, or even the beekeepers. You may also have gotten some eggs from battle if you are lucky. Then you will also need to buy heart fruit, which you can get from Flint for 50 gold each. In the barn, feed your 2 blobs a heart fruit, and once they both have a heart icon, you're set. Just be careful if you're feeding more than 2 blobs a heart fruit, their breeding pairs will be randomized. The breeding process starts the next time you go to sleep. When you return to your barn the next day, you will see an indicator on each blob with an egg and 1/3 progress. This will continue to progress every time you sleep, no matter what, into 2/3, 3 out of 3, and then on the 4th sleep, you will find a large brood egg. This means that an egg takes an in-game week of 4 days to produce. As long as you have space in your barn or your team, you can immediately hatch the egg and find out what it contains. What should you be expecting out of this brood egg? Let's break it down. The most obvious is appearance. Every blob has 3 colors and many physical attributes such as size, face, pattern, and other features. Each feature and color can be independently brought down. If we take an example of a bee and a cow blob, you may get different combinations, like more of a cow blob with bee wings, or a bee blob with the cow horns or a cow pattern. It can be really varied, like you can just get a cow blob that is yellow. Other than appearance, you will be also carrying over abilities. And this is pretty much randomized, so you can have a bee-looking blob that will produce milk. This can be really handy if you just want to breed down a specific ability, let's just say produce milk. So you can breed down the ability and you would save money from buying additional cow eggs and just have different variety of blobs that just produce milk. In a very similar way, blobs will also break down skills, which is their attacks. Skills do have one limitation, and that is they cannot be of a different type than the blob. So if your blob is a storm type, it will only inherit neutral or storm type attacks. Other than that, the skills will be inherited at random from the pool of both parents. The strategy here is to aim to have skills that level up all 3 main stats: attack, defense, and speed, indicated by the icon in each skill. At the bottom of the blob details, you will also notice the mutation slots. Mutations grant immunity to a specific status, such as immunity to poison. This is what makes Breed Blobs stronger, because immunities are pivotal in certain battles. I mean, imagine not taking poison damage. That's huge. Once a blob has a mutation, it will breathe it down into its egg, so that means further generations can have up to 3 mutations at once. Players can also unlock a player skill, which increases the chance of getting a mutation, so if you're a breeder, you might want to prioritize that. The last thing that blobs breed down is stats. Let's take an example of these two horn blobs. They start with an average power of 61 each. Now, the egg stats will depend on the happiness. If we breed down the blobs in a miserable and unhappy barn, the egg with 0% happiness results in a blob of power 54. Yeah, it lost 7 levels as well as less HP and energy. On the other hand, a 98% happy blob with a power of 66 and a much higher HP and energy. So you want to keep the happiness as high as possible. But that is not all. You will also want 100% happiness because you can then get radiant blobs. Before we delve into that, how can you achieve 100% happiness? Well, I have tried and tested the breeding process thoroughly and figured out you can actually obtain 100% happy blobs even with your first egg. Let's break it down piece by piece. When inspecting blobs, you will see 4 happiness indicators. These are not the complete picture, but let's start with them. The flower icon represents decorations. A blob will fulfill this need once you place 10 furniture with the decoration icon into the barn. The quickest way to get this in the early game is by getting painted eggs during the first festival, purchasing the painted egg decoration from Carnelian and keeping 10 eggs, but make sure not to spend them all. If you have already done so, don't worry, there are other decorations to build and there are more ways to make your blobs happy. The second indicator is the temperature. It's important to know that different blobs will have different preferences. In Solus, the barn is naturally warm, so you might want to start with the bee and hen blobs, which naturally love the warmth. You can control the temperature of the barn using heaters, air conditioners, and thermostats, which you can buy their blueprints from Flint. Now, these blueprints will require you to have glass, and glass is made by smelting sand in the furnace, and the furnace is something you obtain when you first build your house. So that is something you may want to keep in mind if you want to have a better control of your barn temperature. The next indicator is quite straightforward, it's the poop icon, and you just have to keep your barn clean. Blobs will produce poop overnight if they are fed, so simply use the shovel to dig up the poop and your blobs will be happy. Later on, you may want to start building litter boxes because it will make your life way easier and the litter boxes will hold up to 16 poops before you need to clean them out. And the fourth indicator is relating to petting. Just interact with the blob, pet them, and they're happy. Later in the game, you will also unlock a way to auto-pet your blobs, but I will let you discover that for yourself. Although we have covered all 4 main indicators, there are other things that will impact happiness. And the first thing is food. Blobs that are not fed will reduce the happiness. So put the food in the feeder and that will keep your blobs as happy as based on your 4 main indicators. That said, even with all 4 green indicators of happiness and the well-fed blobs, they will only produce eggs with 80% happiness. That's where secret mechanisms come into play. If you pay attention to your blobs, you may already know what it might be. That's right, it is cravings. Every blob has 4 cravings, 3 foods, and 1 toy. The food cravings start simple, with direct produce like rice, tomatoes, fish fillets. Blobs with higher stats may start requesting more complex food that require you to cook. And satisfying these is still worth it because they will increase the blob's max HP. It may be important for you to learn who you want to battle. For example, battling Jasper will give you a soda can, which will help you satisfy some of your blob's cravings. For the play cravings, blobs will request 1 of 5 toys. These toys contain a minigame which will grant the blob max energy once you complete it. The tennis ball and shuttlecock can be bought from Flint for 1000 gold each, whereas the other 3 can be bought during festivals, so make sure to keep an eye out on every shop. Apart from the increase in stats, every craving fulfillment adds 2% happiness to the egg. That means you can add 8% happiness from each blob every day if you satisfy all 4 cravings. If you remember, we said that if all happiness is green, the blob starts with a base of 80% happiness. That means you only need 10 cravings fulfilled to get 100%. You can satisfy more cravings to compensate for other needs, like poor decoration, or when you have temperature mismatch between your blob's preferences. This is because you can gain up to 48% of happiness just from cravings. An important thing to note is that these indicators and cravings only count towards happiness once you have the 1 out of 3 progress bar. The day that you give the hot food does not matter, but the next 3 days will be important for the blob's happiness. If the blob is bred with 100% happiness, they have a chance to become radiant. And that is not guaranteed, but it does happen often enough, and it does continue to increase in chance with further generations. Later on, I will show you how you can better manipulate your results. It's important to note that not all radiant blobs are equal, and this is because there are 5 different radiant mutations, which you can actually read about in the library once you get that built up. The first 2 are quite straightforward, where your blob automatically regenerates either HP or energy when it is their turn during battle. The third radiant inflicts 10% of the damage that you receive back on the attacker. The fourth mutation is quite lovely because you get a 25% chance to dodge incoming attacks. And the last mutation gives you a 25% chance to inflict a random status effect once you attack an enemy blob. But guess what? Radiant mutations are actually passed down to their blobbags like other mutations, and this will happen even if they are unhappy. So you don't need to maintain the 100% happy blobs to create more radiant blobs. That said, you should keep getting 100% happy blobs because blobs can have up to 3 radiant mutations at once, and this will make your blob super powerful. For example, I have a blob that gains health and energy every turn. But the problem with this is that you can get too cocky and they're not invincible, and you might still die. Now, before we end this guide, it is important to know there is something that some players refer to as saves coming. The eggs are generated when you go to sleep. So if you reload the game in the morning, it will be the same result. So what a lot of players do is to save manually before they go to sleep. Then the next day, once they get the egg, if it is not what they are expecting, so you might have a 100% blob that is not radiant, or you might want a specific feature that has not passed down, then reload to your manual save file, sleep overnight again, and check your egg, which will be different. Saves coming comes really useful if you are breeding for specific appearances, abilities, radiance, without having to spend another in-game week to try and get that result. With that, I complete this master guide for blob breeding, and I guarantee that you are onto a fun journey with Ova Magica. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below and I will do my best to answer your questions. I thank you for watching. Bye bye.